Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Commencing this exploration, we embark upon a detailed examination of Laura Bassi's Aeris compression, a work published in 1748 that delves into the complexities surrounding air pressure. This essay will provide a thorough section-by-section evaluation of Bassi's claims, arguments, and methodology within this significant contribution to 18th century physics, examining the internal structure and reasoning of Bassi's work. We will assess its strengths, weaknesses and enduring significance within the broader context of scientific inquiry. Section 1 Introduction and Initial Propositions. Bassi's Aeris compression opens with an articulation of the prevailing scientific understanding of air, presenting it as a tangible substance possessing weight and elasticity. Bassi immediately establishes her intention to explore the phenomena associated with air compression, setting the stage for a systematic investigation. The initial claims center around air's inherent properties. Bassi argues, drawing upon established pneumatic principles, that air resists compression, a resistance proportional to the applied force. She lays the groundwork for demonstrating this through experimental observations. Her reliance on earlier works by scientists like Robert Boyle is evident, yet she aims to expand upon their findings through meticulous experimentation and analysis. She describes the inherent elasticity observed when air is subject to pressure, a quality which enables it to return to its original volume once the compressing force is removed. This introductory section lays the foundation for the subsequent experimental investigations detailed within the Section 2 Description of Experimental Apparatus and Methodology. Central to Bassi's arguments is a detailed description of the apparatus utilized in her experiments. She meticulously outlines the construction and operation of a modified air pump, explaining its components and their individual functions. The design, she claims, allows for precise control over the degree of air pressure applied within a sealed container. An integral part of the experimental setup, as described by Bassi, is the inclusion of a manometer to accurately measure the pressure. The design of the manometer and its method of operation is meticulously described, emphasizing its role in quantifying the air's resistance to compression. She elaborates upon the methodology employed, emphasizing the importance of repeated trials under carefully controlled conditions. Bassi details her procedure for incrementally increasing the pressure within the container, recording the corresponding changes in volume and pressure. The emphasis on careful measurement and controlled conditions underscores her commitment to empirical rigor. The apparatus description is presented as a crucial element to substantiate her empirical claims. Section 3 Initial Observations on Air Compression at Moderate Pressures. The initial experimental observations, presented by Bassi, revolve around the behavior of air when subjected to moderate pressures. As pressure increases, she meticulously documents the corresponding decrease in volume. These observations, Bassi argues, corroborate existing scientific theories, particularly Boyle's law, which states that for a fixed amount of gas kept at a fixed temperature, pressure and volume are inversely proportional. The experimental data, according to Bassi, provides empirical support for the proposition that the pressure of a gas is inversely proportional to its volume. Her observations include quantitative measurements of pressure and volume, further solidifying her case. She acknowledges that at moderate pressures, the observed results align closely with theoretical predictions. However, she subtly hints at deviations from ideal behavior at higher pressures, laying the groundwork for later Section 4 Investigation of Air Compression at Elevated Pressures. Bassi directs her attention to the behavior of air under significantly elevated pressures. She reports observing noticeable deviations from the predictions of Boyle's law. At higher levels of compression, the volume reduction is less than what the inverse proportionality relationship would suggest. This indicates, according to Bassi, that air deviates from ideal behavior under extreme conditions. She postulates that intermolecular forces, typically negligible at lower pressures, become more significant as the air molecules are forced into closer proximity. Bassi's interpretation suggests a departure from the purely mechanical explanation afforded by Boyle's law, hinting at the influence of internal properties of the air itself. This elevation in pressure, she reports, causes an additional increase in temperature, which modifies the expected ratio. Section 5 Analysis of thermal effects during air compression. Bassi's work acknowledges the role of temperature changes during the air compression process. She discusses, albeit qualitatively, the phenomenon of adiabatic heating, the increase in temperature observed when a gas is rapidly compressed. Bassi explains that the increase in temperature contributes to the observed deviations from Boyle's law, the temperature change influencing the relationship between pressure and volume. She proposes that the increase in temperature imparts additional energy to the air molecules, causing them to resist compression more forcefully. She emphasizes that neglecting the thermal effects introduces inaccuracies into the calculations, rendering the simple inverse proportionality inaccurate. Section 6 Discussion of elasticity and potential energy storage. Bassi shifts her focus to the concept of elasticity in relation to compressed air. She postulates that the compressed air possesses significant potential energy, stored as the result of the intermolecular forces resisting the compression. This stored potential energy, she argues, is released when the compression is removed, causing the air to expand back to its original volume. She describes an experiment where the release of compressed air is used to perform mechanical work, demonstrating the conversion of potential energy into kinetic energy. This discussion of energy storage connects her work to contemporary discussions of forces, energy, and the nature of mechanical work. She highlights the importance of understanding this energy storage mechanism for applications such as pneumatic devices. Section 7 Potential applications of compressed air in mechanical devices. Expanding beyond theoretical investigations, Bassi explores potential practical applications of compressed air in mechanical devices. She proposes designs for pneumatic engines and other machines that could harness the energy stored in compressed air. Her suggestions, albeit theoretical in nature, demonstrate an appreciation for the potential of her findings to advance technological innovation. One proposition includes using compressed air to power water pumps. Another design describes a rudimentary pneumatic lever. While these applications are speculative, they illustrate Bassi's forward-thinking approach to scientific inquiry. Section 8 Comparison with alternative theories on air's nature. Bassi engages with prevailing alternative theories concerning the nature of air. She provides a critical analysis of competing perspectives, offering her own arguments in support of her experimental findings. One prominent theory she addresses is the phlogiston theory, then gaining widespread acceptance in explaining combustion. Bassi argues that her work focusing on air compression provides evidence that contradicts the phlogiston theory's core tenets. She claims that her results support a conception of air as an active agent rather than a mere receptacle for phlogiston. Furthermore, she acknowledges the views of other scientists who posited the existence of different types of air, some of which were thought to be more readily compressible than others. Bassi disputes these claims, suggesting that the observed differences in compressibility might be attributed to variations in temperature or humidity. Section 9 Limitations of experimental setup and potential sources of error. Conscious of the limitations inherent in her experimental setup, Bassi addresses potential sources of errors. She acknowledges the challenges associated with maintaining a perfectly sealed system. Recognizing that minute leakages could affect her measurements, she addresses the potential for inconsistencies in the manometer readings, proposing methods for minimizing their impact. Bassi emphasizes that errors can arise from variations in ambient temperature and humidity, which can affect the measurements of pressure and volume. She identifies the non-ideal behavior of the pump itself as a possible source of error to be aware of. She advocates for future experiments that would address these limitations and improve the accuracy of the results. Section 10 Considerations on the role of water vapor in atmospheric air. Bassi considers the influence of water vapor on the behavior of atmospheric air. She acknowledges that atmospheric air typically contains varying amounts of water vapor, which can affect its compressibility. She theorizes that water vapor will influence the pressure and volume relationship observed in her experiments. She discusses the difficulties inherent in precisely controlling the humidity levels within the experimental apparatus. Her recognition of water vapor's role in the compressibility of air reflects a nuanced understanding of atmospheric phenomena. Section 11 Investigation into the speed of sound in compressed air. Bassi includes a section exploring the relationship between air compression and the speed of sound. Building upon previous work on acoustics and sound propagation, she draws connections between the compression of air and the speed at which sound waves travel through this medium. She postulates that the speed of sound should increase with an increase in air pressure. She cites studies which demonstrated that the speed of sound is dependent on the density and elasticity of the medium through which it travels. She explains the complexity of accurately measuring the speed of sound, highlighting the experimental challenges involved. Bassi's decision to incorporate the speed of sound into her work underscores her awareness of the interconnectedness of various physical phenomena. Section 12 Further refinements to the experimental procedure. Bassi outlines several proposed refinements to her experimental procedures. She suggests modifications to the air pump aimed at improving its efficiency and reducing potential for leakage. She proposes the use of more precise measuring instruments to enhance the accuracy of data collection. Bassi recommends implementing better temperature control mechanisms around the experimental apparatus. She calls for future experimental designs that could isolate the effects of different variables on the compression process. These suggestions demonstrate a commitment to continuous improvement in scientific methodology. Section 13 Examination of air liquefaction through extreme compression. Bassi speculates on the possibility of air liquefaction through extreme compression. While she acknowledges that this lies beyond the capabilities of her current apparatus, she theorizes about the conditions under which air might transition from a gaseous to a liquid state. She builds upon theoretical considerations of intermolecular forces and their role in phase transitions. She draws attention to the properties of other gases known to liquefy under certain conditions. A discussion of air liquefaction, although speculative, reveals her awareness of the broader implications of her Section 14 Reflections on the relationship between air and fire. Bassi contemplates the relationship between air and fire, a central theme in early modern science. She revisits the historical context of combustion theories, including the phlogiston theory and its limitations. Bassi notes how her experimental findings on air compression challenge the then dominant views of combustion. She highlights the importance of air as a necessary component for sustaining fire, emphasizing its active role in the process. Her reflections on the relationship between air and fire demonstrate her engagement with fundamental questions in natural philosophy. Section 15 Comparative Analysis of air compression to spring compression. Bassi draws an analogy between air compression and the compression of a spring. She proposes that air, like a spring, stores potential energy when compressed. She explores the similarities and differences between the behavior of air and springs under compression, suggesting that both follow similar physical principles. She notes that both return to their original volume when the compression force is removed, a property determined by their inherent elasticity. This comparative analysis provides an intuitive way to understand the concepts of pressure and energy storage in their Section 16 on the compressibility of air in different atmospheric conditions. Bassi broadens her investigation to consider the compressibility of air under different atmospheric conditions. She acknowledges that atmospheric conditions, such as altitude, temperature, and humidity, can significantly influence the compressibility of air. She postulates that air at higher altitudes, being less dense, might exhibit different compression characteristics compared to air at sea level. She discusses how changes in temperature and humidity could affect the density and elasticity of air, altering its response to compression. Bassi's consideration of the impact of atmospheric conditions reveals her awareness of the complexities of real-world applications. Section 17, assessing the role of air in biological processes. Bassi expands her discussion to include the role of air in biological processes. She considers the importance of air for respiration, highlighting its role in sustaining life. She postulates that air is actively involved in the process of animal respiration, supporting the idea of an active agent rather than a passive void. She discusses the influence of air pressure on physiological functions. Like breathing, she alludes to connections between her studies of air compression and the broader understanding of animal physiology. Section 18, future directions in air compression research. Bassi proposes a series of future research directions focused on deepening the understanding of air compression. She calls for continued experimentation with more sophisticated equipment, capable of achieving even higher pressures and more precise measurements. She suggests focusing future investigations on the thermodynamic properties of compressed air, emphasizing the relationship between temperature, pressure, and volume. She advocates for conducting studies on the behavior of air mixtures and the compressibility of different gases. These proposed research avenues demonstrate her forward-looking perspective on scientific inquiry. Section 19, epilogue, air as a fundamental element of nature. Bassi concludes her treatise with a reflection on the fundamental role of air within the larger scheme of nature. She reiterates the importance of air for sustaining life, supporting combustion, and enabling various physical phenomena. She emphasizes the need for continued scientific investigation into the properties of air, arguing that the understanding of air holds the key to unraveling deeper secrets of the natural world. She describes the ubiquitous presence of air and its necessity for all known life and processes. She positions air as a medium tying together many of the physical processes and aspects of the natural world. Her closing statements highlight the profound significance of air and its central role in the natural philosophy. Section 20, contemporary and subsequent receptions of Bassi's experimental results. Although widely recognized as an intellectual figure, Bassi's experimental results concerning air compression received variable appraisal in the scientific community. Some contemporaries praised her methodical approach and the clarity with which she presented her findings. Others, more entrenched in existing theories, expressed skepticism regarding the deviation from Boyle's law she observed at higher pressures. Some critics questioned the precision of her apparatus, citing potential sources of error. Despite the initial skepticism, Bassi's work has subsequently gained recognition. Later scholars have acknowledged its contribution to the advancement of pneumatics and the understanding of real gas behavior. It provided an important empirical challenge to existing theories. Conclusion. In conclusion, Laura Bassi's Aeris compression represents a significant contribution to the scientific understanding of air. Through rigorous experimentation and detailed analysis, she explored the behavior of air under compression, highlighting deviations from existing theories and suggesting new avenues for research. Her work displays a commitment to empirical observation, methodological rigor, and a thorough understanding of contemporary scientific discourse. Her acknowledgement of experimental limitations, coupled with her proposed refinements, reflects a spirit of scientific humility and an unwavering dedication to the pursuit of knowledge. While elements of her work spurred disagreement at the time, its lasting significance lies in its contribution to the larger scientific conversation concerning the nature and properties of air, solidifying Bassi's place among the pioneering scientists of the 18th century. Her exploration of air, its properties, and the means of experimentation are still useful and important today.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.